Elves are my favourite of the three elf teams that are currently in the game. The reason for that is they have a lot of really interesting players. They have four positional players. They're blitzers, they're witch elves, they're assassins, and they're runners. They are equally good at defense and offense, and any one of their players can be the hero you need. It's exactly the same as the high elf team. All of their players are potential superstars. They struggle. They're really weak against teams who have high strength. So Khemri, Orcs, Chaos. They struggle. They struggle a lot against players that have a strength advantage. They don't have Dauntless. They don't have very much block. And if they get into a brawl like all the elf teams, they will generally come out worse.
Overall, though, like how difficult do you think they are to play?
I think the Dark Elves are difficult to master because their positionals are quite interesting. They don't act like a lot of the other ones, and they are extremely expensive, like all the elf teams. I'd say, in terms of difficulty, the Dark Elves are probably the hardest of the three elf teams in the game to play at the moment. But at the same time, they're easy to score with. Defense on the elf team's defense is where you're really going to struggle. Let's take a quick look at the players. Enjoying the 80s hair again. So, let's start with the Witch Elf. The Witch Elf is one of the most interesting positionals in the game. She has extremely high potential. She starts with jump up. This means that the player can stand up for free. So when you knock her down, she still gets her full movement 7 allowance. This can be really, really hard to deal with. And for newer players especially, who don't really notice what the skill does, it can be a game-losing skill to miss out on, because you knock a witch elf down, you think she's out of scoring position because she's going to lose some movement from being knocked down. She's just going to jump straight back up, leg it 7 squares into the end zone and catch a pass.
So even with dodge, is it worth following up your knockdown?
Absolutely. You should always, with all elves, you want to keep them in base contact at all times. They're not fighters. You want to make elves dodge, you want to make elves block, you want to make elves roll as many dice as possible. She also has Frenzy. Again, I think Frenzy is one of the best skills to have, if you know how to use it. Because it forces your opponent to play differently. You can't leave people close to the edge with witch elves on the field, because they'll just get pushed out.
Okay, so
she is super expensive. She's one of the more expensive pieces in the game, and she's really easy to kill. Early on, witch elves they don't start with block. So any blitzer on most teams will be able to knock this piece down, and she only has armor value 7. They are prime targets for fouling. And you should foul a witch elf. It's so damaging to the dark elf team if they start with a witch elf to lose that witch elf, because it's over 10% of their team's value in one piece. The next positional is the blitzer. Dark elves can have 4 of these guys. They're exactly the same as the high elf blitzer in every respect. Movement 7, strength 3, AG 4, and armor value 8. Not really much to talk about there. You should always start with all 4 of them. They are your best pieces.
But again, like fairly standard for a blitzer, nothing really special
there.
Nothing
Nothing special.
7, which is nice, but
yep. This guy, the assassin. This guy is one of the least used positionals in the game. They are very expensive, kind of fun to use, almost completely worthless. They are fun pieces, nothing less. Nothing more. They start off with shadowing, which means that anyone who tries to dodge away from them, he has a chance to follow them, free of movement. And he can do that as many times as he wants. I've played with an assassin on my Dark Elf teaming on tabletop, and I literally shadowed a gutter runner 11 squares down the pitch.
But at strength 3, it's going to be a lot easier just to take the assassin out.
Yep. However, we now get to the main point of the assassin. Stab. So, stab is an ability that the assassin can use instead of blocking. And what it does is it makes a completely unmodified armor roll against the victim. If you break armor, you roll on it in the injury table. So you can actually injure a player without blocking them. That means the strength doesn't matter. A strength 3 piece can walk up to a strength 7 death roller, stab it, and if he rolls really well, kill it.
So a bit of a gamble, though.
Very much so, very
Overall.
much so. Assassins are fun, I like them, I don't ever use them in tournaments. They're great fun in open play there. They're runners.
Okay.
These are the guys, in general, that will be handling the ball. Their movement 7, their armor value 7, their strength 3 and agility 4, same as most elves. They have dump off. Dump off means that when they get blocked, if they're holding the ball, they can make a quick pass to anyone who's in range. This can be really handy, because you want to hold the ball with your runner, and then you keep enough elves around him so that if he ever gets attacked or blocked, you can throw it to someone else, and then the opponent has probably used their blitz to get to the ball carrier, so you've just passed it away. Dump off is a really fun skill, I like it. I like the elf runner. They can get like really scary. You give this guy nerves of steel, you can give him pass, you can give him a lot of great stuff, and he just becomes this walking ball carrier who you can just put in harm's way and then pass to someone else as soon as he gets blitzed.
So when you're trying to block against a runner, are you trying to think of where he might potentially use his dump off?
Exactly.
Maybe an interception.
Exactly. And the pass can be intercepted, and you can look at who's around the runner and try and figure out exactly who is likely to be passed to and put tackle zones on them, which makes it harder for them to catch the ball. And then they have a basic lineman, nothing to talk about there. Movement 6, strength 3, ag 4, armor value 8. Again, with ag 4, they can, if they're in the right place at the right time, they can pick up the ball, make a pass, score a touchdown. Same as any other elf lineman.
Great. So this is like some kind of a passing / running team.
More
maybe
running
short
than
passes.
passing. They don't have any passing skills to start with, unlike the high elves. So they don't get any rerolls on that, and they don't get any rerolls on their catches either. So you want to be keeping the ball in hand, running down the field. You use your 4 blitzers to make space and blitz and create a hard cage. You can sacrifice your lineman, kind of. This is the starting build I would go for if I was to play Dark Elves in a tournament. 4 blitzers, you need to get them advancing in SPP as quickly as possible. No Witch Elves, no Assassins. They're too expensive to use early, and they're too vulnerable. You want to make sure you've got an Apothecary before you start bringing Witch Elves in. Witch Elves are really good, but they're so vulnerable. If you go into a game without an Apothecary with a Witch Elf, chances are she's not coming out of that game. I like to keep the runner because it gives us another movement 7 piece, it gives us a designated ball carrier, and dump off can really catch people out. Dark Elves, I would say, are one of the stronger teams in tournaments. I've won a lot of tournaments with Dark Elves, and I've seen Dark Elves win a lot of tournaments.
So yeah, with block and with dump off, they have some good early skills that might be able to make it a little easier for them early on.
Absolutely. When you're playing against Dark Elves, the same mantra goes as for all elf teams. Get up in their face, make them roll as many dice as possible. They only start with 2 rerolls, and they have no free reroll skills at all. So, making them roll dice is the way to beat Dark Elves.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
No worries.